For 112 years, science swore this animal was extinct until 2019, when someone found her still breathing on a lava field. Number 12. The Fernandina giant tortoise. Start with how big she is. A Galapagos giant tortoise can weigh more than 400 pounds and live beyond a century, which means the animal alive today may have hatched before the first car was ever built. The Fernandina tortoise lived on one of the most hostile islands in the archipelago, a place ringed by lava flows so vast that humans could barely walk inland. In 1906, a single male was collected for study. After that, nothing. No confirmed sighting for over 100 years. But the island itself was the problem, because almost no one could cross it to look. Scientists listed the species as possibly extinct and moved on. Yet, something kept leaving clues. A pile of droppings in 1964, a shape seen from an aircraft, a bite mark on a cactus, and here is where the story turned. On February 17, 2019, a conservationist named Washington Tapia and a ranger named Jeffries Malaga found a female over 100 years old, alive in the green shadows between the lava. She was named Fernanda. Genetic tests confirmed she was the real thing, related to that lone male from a century before. Tracks suggest she may not be alone. For 112 years, the experts said extinct. The island simply said, look closer. Number 11. The takahe. You would think a bird this loud would be impossible to lose. The takahe is a heavy, flightless bird from New Zealand, the size of a large hen, dressed in iridescent blue and green with a thick scarlet beak. It cannot fly, it booms and shrieks, and it lived in mountain grasslands. By 1898, after hunting, habitat loss, and introduced predators like stoats and rats, it was declared extinct. For 50 years, it existed only as museum skins and a memory, but a physician named Jeffrey Orbell refused to accept it. He believed the bird might survive in the remote Murchison Mountains, and in 1948, he climbed into that high country and found them, a living colony, hidden above the tree line for half a century. Here's the part most people never hear. The rediscovery was only the beginning of the fight. The population crashed again to near nothing, and conservationists have spent decades hand-rearing chicks and clearing predators. Today, there are around 500 takahe, and in recent years, they have been released back into the wild for the first time in over a century. The bird that science buried in 1898 is walking its ancestral valleys again. Number 10. The coelacanth. This one did not vanish for 50 years. It vanished for 66 million. The coelacanth is a heavy, lobe-finned fish over 6 feet long, weighing close to 200 pounds, with fins that move in pairs like the limbs of a walking animal. Scientists knew it only from fossils, and every fossil stopped at the end of the age of dinosaurs. It was, by every measure, one of the most ancient extinct lineages on Earth. But in 1938, off the coast of South Africa, a museum curator named Marjorie Courtney Latimer looked into a fishing trawler's catch and saw a blue fin unlike anything alive. It was a coelacanth. A creature that had supposedly died with the dinosaurs was lying on a dock, and what happened next was not what anyone expected, because in 1998, a second living species was found on the other side of the world, near Indonesia. These fish live in deep underwater caves, can reach 100 years of age, and do not mature until around 40. Science had declared them a closed chapter of prehistory. They had simply moved into the deep where no one was looking. They are still there tonight. Number 9. The Bramble Cay Melamies. Not every story ends in rediscovery, and this is where the tone changes. The Bramble Cay Melamies was a small brown rodent, and it holds a terrible distinction. It lived on a single tiny coral island in the Torres Strait, near the Great Barrier Reef, a patch of sand barely above the sea. For a while there were hundreds, but this island was only about 3 meters above sea level. As seas rose and storm surges swept higher across the cay, the salt water killed the vegetation the Melamies ate and drowned the burrows where it sheltered. The decline was fast. By 29, sightings had nearly stopped, and a final search found nothing. In 2019, it was officially declared extinct. It is widely recognized as the first mammal driven to extinction, primarily by human-caused sea level rise. There is no dramatic last photograph here, and that is the point. It slipped away on a sandbar while the world was looking elsewhere. It was a warning written very small on a very small island. Number 8. The Pinta Island tortoise. Here is the cruelty of this one. Science knew exactly what he was and knew for 40 years, and still could not save him. In 1971, on Pinta Island in the Galápagos, researchers found a single giant tortoise where the species was thought to be already gone. They named him Lonesome George. From that first day, they understood the truth. He was a subspecies of one. The Pinta tortoise had been eaten by 19th century whalers and then finished off by goats that stripped the island bare. George was the last, and everyone knew it. For over 40 years, scientists tried to breed him with related tortoises. Every attempt failed. This was not a species lost in a blind spot. This was an extinction watched in full daylight, on camera, with a global audience for 4 decades. David Attenborough filmed him just 14 days before the end. On June 24, 2012, George died, and a lineage that survived millions of years closed with him. The experts did not fail to notice. They noticed everything, and it still was not enough. Number 7. The baiji. The baiji was not just a dolphin. It was a freshwater dolphin, pale and nearly blind, that navigated the muddy Yangtze River by sound alone for 20 million years. The Chinese called it the goddess of the river. It had tiny eyes set high on its head, useless in the silt so it read the whole world through echolocation. Then came the turn, and it was industrial. Dam construction, relentless boat traffic, tangled fishing gear, and heavy pollution filled the river with noise and death. A dolphin that lived by sound was trapped in a river that had become a machine. The numbers fell through the floor. In 2006, an international team ran a full survey of the entire river and found not a single baiji. They declared it functionally extinct, the first dolphin species driven to extinction by human activity. Its endling never even had a name, but here is the flicker that remains. Every year or two, someone reports a pale shape in the water, and a few scientists wonder whether one or two could still be hiding in a river that big. Nobody has proven it. Nobody has quite let go. Number 6. The Chinese paddlefish. Imagine a freshwater fish as long as a small boat. The Chinese paddlefish could reach up to 23 feet, one of the largest freshwater fish that ever lived, with a long sword-like snout it used to sense prey in the Yangtze Sea. It had swum those waters for a staggering length of time, a lineage older than the dinosaurs by tens of millions of years. People called it the panda of the Yangtze. Then, in 1981, the Gezhuba Dam cut the river in half and blocked the paddlefish from reaching the upstream grounds where it spawned. A giant that needed the whole river was suddenly locked out of its own nursery. The last confirmed sighting was in 2003. Scientists spent nearly 2 decades searching before they accepted the truth, and in 2022, the Chinese paddlefish was declared extinct. Here is the weight of it. This was not just a species. It was an entire branch of life that had outlasted the dinosaurs, ended by a wall of concrete in a single human lifetime. Number 5. The Rab's fringe-limbed tree frog. This animal could fly in a way. The Rab's fringe-limbed tree frog had enormous webbed hands and feet with fringes of skin along its limbs, and it used them to parachute and glide between the trees of the Panamanian rainforest. It was only discovered by science in 2005. That is what makes this so painful. Almost at the very moment researchers found it, a plague was already sweeping toward it, a deadly skin fungus called chytrid that has devastated amphibians across the planet. The species collapsed almost as fast as it was named. Within a few years, only one was left, a male living at the Atlanta Botanical Garden. His keepers nicknamed him Tuffy. For years, he sat in a controlled enclosure, and sometimes late at night, he would call, a sound no other member of his species would ever answer. On September 26, 2016, Tuffy died. A species that science met for barely a decade was gone, and the last thing it did was call into the dark. Number 4. The Vaquita. This is not history. This is happening right now, tonight. While scientists argue about whether it is already over, the Vaquita is the smallest porpoise on Earth, barely 5 feet long, with dark rings around its eyes like a painted mask. It lives in only one place, the northern end of the Gulf of California, and it was not even described by science until 1958. It has always been shy and rarely seen. The turn is brutal and simple. Fishermen set illegal gill nets for a large fish called the totowaba, whose swim bladder sells for enormous money in illegal markets, and the Vaquita drowns in those nets as accidental catch. Watch the collapse. Around 600 in 1997, 250 a decade later, then under 100, then 60. Today, fewer than 10 are believed to remain. Some scientists argue the species is already functionally extinct, past the point of return. Others point out that the survivors still appear healthy and are still having calves. The real mystery is which of them is right. Somewhere in that gulf tonight, an animal may be swimming that the textbooks will one day call the last of its kind, and we do not yet know its face. Number 3. The Christmas Island pipistrelle. This is the one that should never have happened, because they watched it in real time and hesitated. The Christmas Island pipistrelle was a tiny insect-eating bat that hunted moths and beetles no other animal on the island touched. Through the 1990s and into the 2000s, scientists tracked its numbers falling, likely driven by invasive species introduced to the island, including a wave of predators and disruptors it had never evolved to face. Researchers proposed capturing the last individuals for a captive breeding program. There was debate, there was delay, and the window closed. By 2009, the detectors that once picked up dozens of bats were registering a single one. Scientists finally moved to catch that last bat and found it still calling, still flying its nightly route alone. They could not catch it. In late August 29, the signal simply stopped. It was declared extinct. Here is the part that lingers. This was not a blind spot. It was a species that experts were actively monitoring as it disappeared, a loss that many believe could have been prevented if the rescue had come even a little sooner. Number 2. The Floriana giant tortoise. Sometimes an animal is extinct and hiding inside other animals at the same time. The Floriana tortoise from another Galápagos island was driven to extinction by around 1850, hunted out by whalers and sailors who stacked living tortoises in their ships as food that could survive months without water. For over a century and a half, the species was simply gone. But here's the twist that rewrote the ending. Sailors used to throw unwanted tortoises overboard near a different island, Isabella, where they mixed with the local tortoises. In 2012, scientists testing tortoises on the slopes of Volcan Wolf found something astonishing. Many of them carried Floriana ancestry in their genes. The extinct species was not entirely gone. It was scattered, diluted, hidden inside its hybrid descendants. Conservationists are now selectively breeding those hybrids to concentrate that lost bloodline and generation by generation bring something very close to the Floriana tortoise back from the dead. Extinct, it turned out, out was not quite the final word. Number 1, Martha and the passenger pigeon. To understand this one, you have to understand the scale because it is almost impossible to believe. The passenger pigeon was once the most abundant bird in North America and possibly the world. Their flocks did not number in the thousand, they numbered in the billion. A single flock could take hours, sometimes days, to pass overhead. A living river of birds that turned midday to twilight and broke tree branches with their sheer weight when they roosted. There may have been more passenger pigeons than every other bird in North America combined. Now hold that image because this is the turn. In the 1800s, commercial hunters slaughtered them for cheap meat on an industrial scale, shipping them by the rail car while the forests they needed were cleared around them. A bird that survived by overwhelming numbers could not survive once those numbers were broken. The collapse was breathtakingly fast. In just a few decades, billions became millions, then thousands, then a handful in cages. The last confirmed wild bird was shot around 1900, and then there was only one left in the entire world, a female named Martha, living at the Cincinnati Zoo. Crowds came to stare at the last passenger pigeon on Earth. On September 1st, 1914, Martha died in her enclosure, and the most abundant bird the continent had ever known became extinct. Not in some hidden wilderness, but on display, with her exact date of death recorded, from billions to zero in a single human lifetime. That is the thread running through all 12. Extinction is rarely a clean line between alive and gone. It is a blurred inhuman space full of animals we buried too early and animals we failed to bury in time. Species hiding in lava fields and species vanishing while we watched and argued. The lesson is not only grief, it is attention, because somewhere right now in a deep cave or a muddy river or a single gulf of green water, an animal is either quietly surviving our certainty that it is gone or quietly slipping away while we still believe it is safe.